Are you a football fan? Have you ever found yourself wondering, what in the world was that ref thinking? Well, Mike D, the referee, is here to help you. Join me on Whistle Talk as I talk to professionals on the field and in the booth to help you understand what is going on inside the mind of a football official. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of Whistle Talk, coming to you from, well, we got Championship Sunday that we're making this recording on. We got the NFC and AFC Championship games coming on in a couple hours. Nice snowy, cold day here in New Jersey. Got a nice, fun episode for you. Something that I've talked about. If you follow me on Facebook, you've seen I've posted the question a couple times. Today we're going to dive into the multi-sport officials. But before I introduce my guests, once again, ladies and gentlemen, if you are enjoying the show, please give a little follow, give a like, give a subscribe. They're all free things to do. Click on those things. Give me a thumbs up, a thumbs down, and I don't know, middle finger. I don't know, whatever you got to do. Pray for me when we're doing some of these games. All that fun stuff. So we got all that stuff going on. And also, let me give a shout out to our friends at battlefieldstoballfields.org. Take a look at their website. If you are a veteran and you're looking to get involved in officiating, Battlefields to Ball Fields are there to help you get started with your journey, some of the finances that go into the journey and all that fun stuff. So we got all that stuff going on. So today, as I mentioned, and we may be getting a fourth individual jumping on, I have three and, again, two, possibly 30 guests today who all officiate multiple sports. So basically working year-round. And as of right now, everything is canceled today here in my area. So unless you have an indoor sport where, well, you're living at that facility, you're probably not working today while we're recording this. But, yeah, these guys are all busy. So let me introduce them, allow them to introduce themselves. So, Les Bagley, how are you, sir?
Doing well.
So Les, tell the listeners a little bit about yourself. Where are you coming from, and what sports you officiate?
I'm coming from Northeast Indiana, a couple hours north of Indianapolis. Do football, baseball, and basketball.
Oh, very nice. Oh, here's John trying to get on. He's trying to use his phone as a hotspot. And Chuck, how about yourself?
Good. Chuck Knaub from the Dayton, Ohio area, and I officiate four sports: football, basketball, wrestling, and soccer.
So how does that work with football and soccer?
So soccer, I do Monday through Friday, or Monday through Thursday. Football, I'll do on Friday nights, and then Saturday is just whoever gets me first, whether it's JV, football, youth football, or soccer. Whatever Saturday gets me first on Saturday. You know how that goes.
Yeah, absolutely. Let me send this over. So I only do one sport myself. I'm a single sport person because my kids kind of take over my extra time. I have a son that's in middle school, a daughter that's in high school, and they both are active in three sports, football, basketball, and baseball for my son. My daughter is field hockey, winter track, and lacrosse for her. So as a former coach, and I used to coach multiple sports, but now I only officiate one sport, we always talk to the kids about being multi-sport athletes. We always try to get them, because I know science today has been coming out with doing one sport tends to lead to more injuries in that sport because you're doing the repetitive motions over and over again. But we don't think about the multi-sport officials as much. So, Les, start with you. What was your primary sport?
When I first started off, I played all three growing up. And so when I first started off, here in Indiana, you can sign up and get three sports when you pay your initial fee. So I just went for the three that I was familiar with: football, baseball, basketball, and been loving them all three.
Nice. And Chuck, how about you? What was your initial sport that got you into officiating?
So soccer was my initial sport. I started that in 2012, and I did that. I did that for a long time, and then branched out into basketball and wrestling at the same time. And then a year later, I picked up football. So
Whew.
went a long time with just doing one sport, and then the last 3 or 4 years, I picked up the other three.
Okay. So, what led you from one to the other? What was your motivation to continue working with that?
Well, as you can probably guess and know, there's a huge referee shortage in all sports. And with having downtime in the seasons that I wasn't working, I said, I think I should be out working and helping these kids since there's a need for referees and stuff. So I picked up basketball and wrestling at the same time, um, and then said, you know what, I want to do football. So then I got into football too, and was able to lucked out. And even before I got certified, I found a crew that was looking for a head linesman.
Okay.
So I was actually on a crew, and all set up to go before I was even certified. So that was a good circumstance for me, where I was able to walk right into a varsity crew.
So now, with that, were you able to initially go right to the field for varsity games? Because here in New Jersey, we do a cadet season, so we're not allowed to work the varsity games. But because you had varsity experience with other sports, were you able to kind of bypass that?
Uh, they don't have that here in Ohio. It's pretty much, and obviously they want you to be prepared when you go on, but
Hmm.
I think I was kind of in a unique circumstance since I had officiating experience where I didn't necessarily need a waiver or anything, but there wasn't any issues to be getting onto a varsity crew. Um, right out of the bat as a rookie.
So now, Les, you started all three the same year, same time.
Yeah, when I signed up, kind of started about halfway through the football season, and so I just kind of picked up what games I could. Worked baseball and did that over the summer. Met a guy there that was on a crew. He invited me to join his crew that following year, so kind of jumped in with that. Didn't do basketball right off the bat. Kind of took a year. I was licensed, but didn't do any games that
Okay.
first year.
Oh, good stuff. Oh, let me turn that off. So we're still waiting. John's still trying to get on, having some technical difficulties due to the snow right now. All right, so you guys are basically working year round, correct?
Yes,
Yep, for the most part.
And you both have day jobs, I'm assuming, also,
I
Yes.
do.
because officiating doesn't pay to not have a day job. It pays. I can't complain about it. It pays,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
it's not a day job. Not a day job type of scenario. So, what have you guys picked up now from working the multi sports and being active that have transitioned from one sport to the next that kind of helped you with the other sport, whatever it may be? So, what are some things that you guys have picked up in that aspect?
For me, it's just keeping the focus. You
Okay.
don't have that downtime where you're not thinking about rules, not thinking about, okay, what do I got to do on the games. It's just you're that constantly throughout the year, so it's always keeping that focus, keeping in shape, and just being ready for that next one that comes up.
And Chuck?
Yeah, big thing, keep it in shape. I did a lot of it too, but rather than sitting on the couch eating chips and getting fat, I wanted to be out doing stuff, and I kind of treat it like a free gym membership. I get the exercise and moving around, and a way to give back to the community. And yeah, helps with dealing with the coaches in different sports too. You get a lot of confidence in how you can take and talk to coaches and deal with coaches and be more confident in that aspect of the games.
Okay. Now, is there something that you kind of picked up from working soccer or working basketball or something like that you're like, all right, I gotta carry that technique over into this sport or that sport? Is there anything that you guys have picked up in that aspect?
just the amount of games you do. You get you get a comfort where you're not easily intimidated and you're more comfortable talking to the coaches. Talk to them respectfully, demand respectful talk from them also. Whereas, the younger officials don't want to talk to coaches, don't want to deal with them. They're not approachable. Uh, they don't answer the coaches' questions because they don't have the confidence and they feel intimidated from being, with a newer official. They're being coming from a position of lesser. Just the experience with all the sports just puts you on more of an even keel and gives you a lot of tools where you can talk to the coaches the way they need to be, dealt with.
And how about you, Les?
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I'm a fairly new official too. I'm only in year 2, but it's still just that constant communication between the people you're working with, the coaches, the players. It all transfers and helps make things easier going from sport to sport.
Okay. On the opposite side of it, is there anything that you feel has kind of possibly hurt you because you're kind of crossing over sports and all of a sudden you're like, oh wait, no, that's either wrong level or wrong sport, that you're thinking of a rule or a mechanic or something like that you've noticed?
I think level
Yeah,
gets me
yeah.
sometimes.
The level?
Yeah, just trying to
Um,
hold middle school to the same standard you hold in high school and stuff.
Okay.
I've had some issues with, especially in basketball, when you're starting to anticipate a foul coming and it might not come, and you have maybe might have a quick whistle. Um,
Yep.
I run into that type of stuff at the beginning of the season as you're transitioning. It just reminds you that for actually all sports, you just need to slow down, think about what you're doing, have a deliberate whistle, be confident, stuff like that.
No, my son's a basketball player. He's eighth grade playing middle school and travel basketball. And the one thing I keep telling him about the officials, he's finally broken the habit now, but he liked to try to block shots and he always liked to come down
Yeah.
and really swiping down. And I'm like, 95% of the time, especially at the youth level, when they see that arm chopping down, you're probably going to get blown foul. I said, if you stay up and keep it up, I said, you got a better chance of getting away with the block than you do coming down, because 90% of the time you're going to get an arm, you're going to get a hand when you're chopping down. And there's times where, yeah, he got all ball. It was completely a clean block coming down, chopping down, but it's that movement that, like you're talking about, anticipating. I talk about it with some other officials that I've had on. That's the smoke. Seeing that movement, that's the smoke. And now all of a sudden the flag's coming out or the whistle's being blown, whatever sport it is. So things like that. Do you notice that it's helped you in other sports, or when you're talking about a quick whistle, is it something that's been helpful, hurtful in that aspect?
No, it's definitely helpful. Gives you the confidence to wait and see, process what you've seen, process everything you've seen in a slower manner to where, yeah, you're not missing some of those calls or jumping on stuff that you don't need to.
Okay.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Just taking your time and analyzing everything before you blow that whistle or throw the flag or whatever.
So now, Chuck, soccer. My wife and I always joke around about it. The soccer flop. How do you deal with something like that when you've just come off of maybe a heated Friday night football game and now you've got kids flopping all over the place? Because I know it happens on the youth level. I definitely know it happens at the high school level with soccer in particular, but you also see it in basketball with kids feigning taking the charge and stuff like that. How, as a mindset, when you're in a possibly very chaotic Friday night football type of aspect, to a soccer game where the parents tend to be a little bit back sometimes, if not right on the sidelines, but the intensity level, the physical level of the games. And I'm not saying that soccer is not a physical sport. I followed soccer my whole life, so I'm not naive to that, but it's a different level of physicality than in football. How do you deal with stuff like that on the mental side as being an official?
Um, it's tough. You got to work through it. With the flopping and stuff and embellishment, A lot of times, if it's really bad, I'll pull the player aside, and I like to make a lot of. I tell them it's a public display. Yeah, I'm not going to necessarily give them a card, but everybody in that stadium is going to see me taking that person over and talking to them, and it's a
Hmm.
demonstrative, conversation. I'm like, hey, you're a better player than that. You don't need to resort to the flopping or the cheap shots or this and that. You're a player. You're a better player than that. Play the game. Play the way the game needs to be played. And a lot of times, if you do that, they respond to it. They know, hey, this guy kind of gets what's going on, and he's not. I'm not going to game him. He's not going to game me, and that kind of ends it there.
In soccer, that is a cardable offense. Am I correct?
Yeah, yes, it would be simulation.
Okay.
You don't see it a whole lot in the high school level. It's more in the club level. You do see, you have your crossover players. You do see some of them in high school, but thankfully not. It's not a huge problem.
Well, you're going to see it next summer. I'm sure you'll see it a lot with the World Cup coming around.
Oh
So
yeah,
they see it on the TV screen, and it's right in their face, especially now when we're hosting it. So it tends to heighten things. On basketball, is that the embellishment? Is that a foul? Is that a technical, or is there something like that? Do you call the charge and then the embellishment of it, or can it be a foul on both ways?
it can be a foul both ways. If it's bad enough, they have instituted a flop signal this season. So it's just a common foul with a flop signal that everybody knows that hey, that was an embellishment or a flop. Um, don't see it a whole lot in high school, but it does happen.
Okay, that's interesting. So now, Les, what have you seen that with what you're doing with the
I
basketball
haven't seen a whole
guys?
lot. They they gave the warning originally for us, and then you can kind of talk to them a little bit. Hey, kind of like what Chuck was saying, just kind of we saw it, knock it off, and most times they'll just kind of move on and not deal with it too much.
Okay. All right, so let's talk crews now. I Here in New Jersey, we have a six-person crew for our Friday night games. Get to the playoffs, we get the added seventh person. What are the numbers like for baseball and for basketball and for soccer? How does that mechanic work? Are you with a crew in that aspect? And if you are, again, how many are there, or how does it work with soccer? Is it just one referee and two linesmen? Are there two referees and no linesmen? Different things like that. So how does that all work?
So here in Ohio, for soccer, JV is a two-person system. And then typically, if it's a doubleheader where the JV and then the varsity play, the two people that are on the JV, they stay around for the varsity and they run the line for the varsity. And then the center comes in for the varsity. Basketball is similar. There's usually for sub varsity, there is two-person that are there for the sub varsity games. That's all the way from middle school up to freshman and JV. And then a new entire crew comes in for the varsity. But we typically in soccer and basketball, we don't work with the same people every night. We work with them, throughout the season, but we're not on a specific crew like we are in football.
And how about Les? How about with baseball and stuff like that?
Same thing, like Chuck was saying. It's you never know who you're working with from game to game. It's two-person crew all the way through regular season up through varsity. And then once you get up into some of the playoff games, they'll add a third person for
With
baseball.
baseball, you're only getting
Yeah.
three at the bigger games too.
Yep.
Interesting, because I know that can be a little chaotic with mechanics and getting into the position, and then all of a sudden you have an overthrow, and now you're hustling to get another call from another angle that you're probably not at the best angle for at times. So
Right.
I've seen it with my son's level, and again he's middle school right now, but travel baseball. It's tough at times, and I feel for the umpires in that aspect, especially the guys that are working the tournaments. And you're working game 5 now in the summertime, wearing behind the plate where you're sweating. Well, sweating bejesus, it's coming through your pores and out. So now you got to hustle back into that spot. So that kind of leaves me, and Chuck, you mentioned it before, your free gym membership that you have. Is there anything specific that you guys do from season to season, or just going over to keep yourself healthy and in good shape? Because every sport's a little bit different with the movement. Baseball is not as much running as opposed to working the sidelines of a soccer or a football game, and basketball then trying to triangulate everything. And so, what do you guys do to make sure that you're in the right position, that you're in shape to be in the right position? Let's start with you.
Honestly, it's just getting out there and doing it. I don't really have a specific program that I do or anything like that. It's just you get out on the field and you kind of work on warming up, getting ready for the game, and moving around. So,
Now, have you ever
Yeah.
gotten injured in a game?
oh, pulled muscles. You know,
Yeah.
my first couple years, this past year I lost about 65 pounds, which helped out dramatically. But you get those initial first football games, you get that long breakaway, and you're on the side trying to keep up with these young kids, and felt that one. So.
Yep. My last year working the short wing, opening kickoff, first game of the season, opening kickoff, touchdown, 90 yards. I'm like, oh man. And speed is not my thing to begin with, and trying to keep up with that, and it's like, oh boy. How about you?
Kind of the same. Throughout the season, do a lot of stretching, walking. I'm not a runner, even though the sports are run. I can't get out and just run for distance just to run. So I do stretching, walking. Occasionally, I'll do some weights and stuff like that. But for the most part, it's the work through the season and then warming up and cooling down before and after.
All right, and for those that are watching, John Devaney just popped on with us. John, how are you today?
I'm good.
Internet's not so good though.
Yeah, I'm on my phone. I could use my laptop. No TV, no internet.
Oof.
I know, and the games are going to be starting soon.
Yeah, no, we were just talking about that. So, John, don't be offended. We kind of started without you, but
Not at all.
introduce yourself and the 19 sports that you officiate.
So my name is John Devaney, and I am an official now for just about 15 years. I do high school football. I do high school volleyball, and I do youth basketball now. I don't do high school anymore. And my last sport is girls lacrosse, which is pretty much my main sport. And I just became a college official there, and I do as much high school as I can. I absolutely love it.
I didn't realize that you dropped basketball, the high school basketball, because I knew that was the one in there.
Yeah, it was just too much. I got too much going on in the winter. Right now, I train lacrosse players, and I do a lot of lacrosse officiating, so it wasn't fitting into my schedule.
So, John, we were talking about the last thing that we were talking about was just overall health, like different things that you do to maintain staying in shape and different things like that, and how it correlates through the seasons that you're doing and how busy you are. Is there anything particularly that you do? John and I have actually had a discussion, and John was on a previous episode where John had a pretty severe injury in football as an umpire, had his legs taken out. But had anything else that's come about from the other sports, injuries, things like that?
No. Unfortunately, I'm out there shoveling snow today, and I don't feel that injury very often. What happened was I broke my tibia and tore my MCL, and today I'm actually feeling my MCL a little bit out there. But no, the other sports, I mean, volleyball, you're very stable. You're standing on a platform or the floor the whole time. Lacrosse, there's a good chance that you're going to make contact with players here or there, so you got to be a little bit wary. But I find that in basketball, there's never was an issue, and there still isn't. I do youth a couple times a week now, and I don't have any issue there.
All right. So now we've talked. We're all pretty much with the crew type for football, but now you're working all these other sports where it's not a set crew, and sometimes you don't know who you're working with for different games at these different sports. How has that dynamic, how has that kind of changed what you guys possibly do? Has there ever been a person that you and their officiating style just didn't jive and kind of a bit of a conflict? And what are some things that if you know going in, maybe it's a first year official or it's a much older official? Like, what are some of the things that you guys are doing possibly to compensate or to alleviate any type of tensions or different things like that, being you're not consistently working with a crew?
Big thing for me is if you work with somebody you know, is you got to make sure you pregame. You always got to talk about things that are going to happen, things that might happen. I see who I'm working with. I know, going in, well, I may need to do a little bit more tonight. I may need to cover more of an area. I may need to, do this since I work with this person. Then on the other side, you see certain people work there. You're like, hey, I don't have to do anything tonight. I just need to make sure I'm here as a support because this guy's going to, is in charge. He's going to take care of everything.
Okay. So kind of like a crew chief.
Yep.
And John, how about you?
So in my other sports, for the most part, there is somebody designated as the R1 or crew chief or lead official. Lacrosse is definitely out of all of them, it's more of a partnership. But at the end of the day, somebody's got to make a decision here or there. But for the most part, it's a partnership. I will say that I think there's positives and negatives. I mean, I like being on a crew, and I know that I have consistency in football, and I know what I'm going to get when I'm there, and I know everybody's strengths and weaknesses on the crew, and we can, all work together to come out with the best outcome. And to be honest with you, in my other sports where it's just me and one other official, no, sometimes you're right. You get to a field or a venue, you don't know what you're getting. I don't really think that that's a good thing.
The consistency is the biggest thing that I've always tried to. That I know as a coach, we always asked for just be consistent with the calls. And now in football, coaches know when they see our crew, they kind of have a general idea of how we officiate the games because we try to be as consistent week to week with it. But then as the flow of the game is going, the kids will learn our tendencies. The kids are like, all right, I know they're not going to throw a ticky-tack holding penalty, or I know that these guys are going to be hard line on interference, and they kind of do it. And so now we're trying to be consistent through the game, where now if you're showing up and all of a sudden Joe Smith pops up as your other official and you've never worked with them before, you might not know their strengths or their weaknesses, as Chuck, you were mentioning before. And the consistency level can be kind of skewed at times. How about you, Les, with baseball and stuff like that? Are you getting different people behind the plate or things like that can kind of be a little difficult?
Yeah, we'll communicate the week or before the game to kind of decide who's taking what position as far as plate or field. And it's one of those things where you never know what you're getting to. As a new official, I like different guys because I can learn stuff from everybody. Mm-hmm. But you also see those things that you learn that you don't want to do. And so you kind of pick those up. It's like, hey, I see how you're handling that situation. It's not how I want to do it in the future. So kind of avoid that, and you kind of learn from both sides, the positives and the negatives.
Yeah, I talked about it in my early officiating career. I actually kept a notebook. When we started with football, I wasn't allowed to work the varsity games. We were allowed to work as the chain crew. We weren't allowed to work on the field in the varsity games our first year as a carded official. So I kept a notebook because then the following year, you're hopefully looking to get an invite onto a crew, and I would sit there and like, all right, I worked that game with them, and I didn't like the mannerisms or how they communicated with each other, let alone with the coaches or the players. So yeah, I like picking up, and I still today like working with other crews so I can still learn and pick things up or possibly help somebody else out if necessary, things like that. So today, we pretty much all are dealing with, to some capacity, the O-to-O systems in football. Are you guys seeing that with other sports now? John, I know with lacrosse, they're starting to use an earpiece. I saw it in my daughter plays field hockey. I saw them. It almost looks like an iPhone earpiece. I know soccer has been using it in different things. Is this something that is growing? Is this something that you're seeing across all the multi sports that you're involved in?
So I have not seen it in basketball. I have not seen it personally in volleyball, but I know that it's being used. This is definitely a movement that is gaining speed and gaining ground. And me personally, I don't see any negatives at all. I don't understand why more sports don't use it. And the truth of the matter is, if you have it and you don't use it, that's fine. But when you want it, if you want it, it's there. You can, and it's available. That one time you might want to use it. It might pay off. But to be honest with you, basketball to me, I just don't see a need for it there.
Basketball and volleyball, I can understand because you're in that indoor atmosphere and you're not 40, 50 yards away from your partner as you could be in lacrosse or in soccer and stuff like that. Are you using it, Chuck, in soccer? Or are you using it in other sports?
Yeah, we use. I have a comm system that I use in soccer, and with soccer being somewhat subjective in what you call, as opposed to like some of the other sports where it's black and white, you do have wiggle room in soccer where you can play advantage if need be, or you can as whether you're calling a foul or not. So a lot of times the communication with your sideline officials over the radios is invaluable,
Okay.
and it really helps a lot with the flow of the game and making sure that you don't miss key match incidents or key things that are going on in the game that you need to be on top of. They really help.
And Les, how about you?
No, basketball and baseball, we don't use anything like that. I know, like summer ball, I've seen some guys using the communication with the catchers and stuff, but nothing for the officials.
Okay. What do you guys think it would help with baseball and softball and things like that, or?
I don't think, not in baseball, I wouldn't, just because it gives you that opportunity to come together, talk, and make sure it shows the coaches that you're coming together and getting the call right. I guess, in my opinion, just kind of get you together. Hey, what'd you see? And talk it through that way. I think the getting together works a little better.
Okay. Not gonna lie, the first time that I saw it in the field hockey world, like I said, it almost looked like the iPhone, the AirPod that was hanging in the air. And I thought the person was just sitting there having a phone conversation. I didn't know that they were wired to the person on the opposite sideline, or 40, 60, 70 yards away from them. So I'm like, what the heck is going on here? Because the cell phones are kind of frowned upon in the sports playing field. But found out that it was a communication device that they were talking with the other official. So made me feel a little bit better. So, what advice would you have for people that are possibly looking to get involved in a second sport or a third sport or the fourth sport that you guys they're all doing? Like I said, I myself, I'm football. I'm strictly a football official. And it's not for the fact of not wanting to get involved in other sports. It's the fact that my kids are playing all the time and different things, so I know that I can kind of block out Friday nights and be okay with that and not really miss anything. But that's going to be difficult in the next couple of years with my son moving into high school football himself. So, but what advice would you have for people who are looking to possibly get involved in another sport?
I would say definitely do it, because not only will it, it'll definitely help you in what you're already doing, but there's plenty of sports you can find something that you will enjoy. It doesn't, if you're basketball, you not necessarily like football, but you can do volleyball or something else. I would definitely look into it and definitely suggest that you venture out in other sports because it is fun, it is rewarding, and that's why I do it.
So there are two things for me as someone that does a bunch of sports, and the first thing is culture. If you're going to move from one sport to another sport, I find that the culture of each sport is very different. What's acceptable from the coaches? What's not acceptable? For instance, volleyball is very tight with the coaches.
Mm-hmm.
The coaches are not. Their coaches are really not allowed to say very much, and there are rules about where they can stand, when they can stand, and things they can do. Where, as a football official, we know we have a guy on the back of our neck the whole time talking to us during the play, after the play, before the play, whenever the play. Like, and here's the other thing: the tone of their voice, the loudness of their voice, right? Maybe even some of the things that they're saying that are acceptable at football are not acceptable on the lacrosse field, and then they're absolutely not acceptable on a volleyball court. Like, so when I started doing volleyball, for instance, um, I my first few years had officials looking at me and being like, "Hey, he can't say that," and I would say, "What? What did he do?" Because because I came from other cultures, and not that they were disrespectful, not that they were demeaning, but it's very, very tough. They almost can't say anything. So even the players, know your culture, the culture of the sport you're getting into. And then the second thing for me is I definitely pick up things that I carry from sport to sport that make me a better official. There are things that I see in sports that, I'm being cross-trained by not just different officials. I'm being cross-trained and mechanically from other sports. And it's brought me to this. It's very, very important. And I also keep a list, Mike, of officials, how they officiate, who I like, who I don't, or, what to expect when I get there, especially in my two sport officials, because it's, just you and that other person.
Mm-hmm.
But it's very important to learn who to learn from, but it's very important to learn who not to learn from. And that, I don't care if that official's been there 25 years, 20 years, 10 years. It doesn't matter how much experience they have. Let's face it. There may be a man or a woman out there that's only doing this 5 years, and you're going to quickly see that their mechanics and their professionalism is better than somebody that's out there 20 years. So know who to learn from, and more importantly, learn who not to learn from.
Good stuff. Very good stuff. I hope I'm on a positive side of that list that you have, John.
You are. Absolutely.
Yes. And how about you, Les?
Yeah, I would say do it. When kind of we talked about earlier, the shortage of officials in all sports. Anytime I can get somebody else involved, that's a great thing. Just here in Indiana for football, we're a 5-man crew for varsity level.
Yep.
And I hear the got a lot of guys you talk to, your 6-man crew, 7-man crew. It's like, that'd be nice to have that kind of stuff, but just get involved, help out, and like I said, just pick up from everybody.
So now, do you guys find it difficult transitioning from a male sport to a female sport, and how you officiate?
I personally do not. There are obviously, there are differences between males and females and officiating them, but I don't officiate them any differently. I also coached for many, many years in many different sports. I have 4 kids, and as they came through, I ran a bunch of organizations in town and coached, 5 or 6 different sports. To be honest with you, I think coaching girls is easier. But I haven't found that reffing girls is any different than boys or boys than girls.
Okay. Do you guys, does it cross over with the genders and the different, Les, do you do softball, or are you strictly baseball, or is it girls?
Just baseball. The biggest I would say would be basketball, going from girls' game to a boys' game. You kind of guys maybe let a little more go on the boys' side just because they can, fight through contact better or that kind of stuff. But the rules are the same. It's just maybe you kind of take it a little easier depending on, whether it's a boys' game or girls' game.
Okay. Chuck, how about you?
Yeah, I would agree with the soccer and the basketball. The difference between the boys and the girls is mainly physicality. Guys, will beat the crap out of each other for 80 minutes and they'll be fine after the game. Girls, they tend to be a little more hold grudges longer. They're a little shorter fuse. You got to watch them, I think, a little more. They tend to get a little more, sometimes be a little more spicy. I think they tend to fly off the handle a little quicker. Like maybe you're talking to my boyfriend or something like that. But it's different from boys. But That's the main difference.
Gotta say, I've seen that with the boys too, though. Especially today with social media and stuff like that. So, I don't officiate any of the girls' sports right now, so I can't attest to that. I'm looking to get into doing the flag football, which is becoming a varsity sport here in New Jersey in a year or so. But again, it's my kid's schedule right now. But yeah, I see the spiciness on the male side too. So I don't think it's just the females in that aspect. But I coached. I went from coaching football to girls track, and I got to say I had to temper my coaching style of I was an offensive lineman, being an in-your-face. I was an old school, loud offensive line coach, and that didn't work in coaching girls throwers. So I definitely had to adjust my coaching style. That didn't work in coaching throwers in general because I was the boys and girls throwing coach at that point in time. But yeah, I had to change my temperament definitely. So one last question for you, and try to get everybody off so we can get into watching some football this championship weekend. Assigners. I have to deal with one assigner, and he's the second assigner that I've had to deal with in my football career. But then we also have our state assigner for playoffs and stuff like that. How do you guys find it is going from the different assigners through the different sports? Are some more amenable to your schedules, things like that? Like, how does that work for you guys with the multiple sports and with the crossover? Like, Chuck, you're mentioning whoever gets to you first on a particular weekend for a game. So how does that work out for you guys?
Down here, actually, two of these signers are football and basketball. They do both, so they're familiar with all the people that do, work for them and their schedules and stuff. But main thing is the assigners know um, what I want, what are my availability during the week. Um, a lot of them know that I can't say no, so if they have something that needs filled, they call me because I tend to be the last one. If there's a game available, I'll jump on at the last minute if needs covered. But mainly just your availability. If assigners assign you a game, they think you're available to take it. So the big thing is we use Dragonfly. Their big thing is they want to make sure our schedule is updated in Dragonfly, and if we're available on a day, they assign us a game, we're going to take it. The big frustration with them is when we show available, they assign us a game, and we don't take it. So the big thing on our end, on a referee's end, is just make sure your schedule's updated so that the assigners aren't wasting their time. It helps them out. I picked up dabbled a little bit starting into the assigning game, so I know from that side and see from that side the frustrations as far as knowing what your schedules are and stuff. And, just
So,
big thing is like with communicating with coaches, you have to communicate with your signers, make sure they know your schedule and stuff like that, so you can both help each other out and get what you need out of it.
so now are you Dragonfly across all of your sports?
Yes, we used to be Arbiter and then switched to Dragonfly.
Because here in New Jersey, at one point, we were Zebra Web for football and Arbiter for other sports, and then you had the youth sports that were using a different platform. So,
Yep.
John, I'll kind of go to you next with this one. How do you find it with the different assigners, and is everything the same system now for us in New Jersey?
So everything's going to be the same system from us for us moving forward on ZebraWeb for high school sports. But I will say, with myself having 4 different assigners, 5 different assigners, 6 different assigners, that all using different platforms, that is something that I agree with Chuck. You have to manage your schedule, and you're the person that has to tie everything together. And to me, doing as many sports as I do, I'm not going to lie. And now this spring, I'm starting. I have a college lacrosse schedule that I have to get into my high school lacrosse schedule. It's not easy. I'm not going to lie. It's not easy. And at the end of the day, if you mess it up, The assigners have a hard enough job already, and you're just going to make their job harder. The other thing, being a multi-sport official, is all the assigners have different personalities, different ways they operate. Um, I don't want to get myself in trouble with anybody here, but I will say I have assigners that are dot every I, cross every T, very reliable. And you know what? They I don't think they expect too much. And then I have other signers. I do have signers that they're not as professional. They're more likely to mess things up or what. It's like they're all good people, but you have to. It makes me respect and appreciate the assigners that I have. In the past, I got to say, I've had some assigners that have been absolutely unprofessional, and now, luckily, and maybe it's because they were, they're no longer my assigners. I have different assigners in some of these sports, and just the personalities and the way people assign. Everyone assigns. We know we get our football schedule months and months in advance.
Yeah.
You know what? I get my volleyball schedule months and months in advance. Usually after my football schedule, like a month or two later. But the way lacrosse is, and it's not any fault of the assigner. It's a different culture, and it's the same ads. So we might get our football schedule in May or June, right? That's when it starts coming out. Then by June and July, I'll have my girls volleyball, which I also do sports at the same time, which is challenging. So I do football and girls volleyball in the fall, and luckily I have two very good assigners. But at the end of the day, if it gets screwed up, it's my fault, and we all know as officials we can't do that. And now we are about a month, maybe a month and a half away from lacrosse season. I won't get my schedule. To no fault of the assigner, I will not get that schedule until maybe weeks before the things start panning out. Luckily for me, I already have my college games, so I know those days and other things in my life. But yeah, it's a challenge, and it's up to you to identify what the challenges are and navigate them. The assigners have millions of people to deal with. I only have 4 or 5. That's the way I look at it.
And how about you, Les?
Yeah, I got two main assigners that I work with for all 3 sports, actually. And one of the assigners I do a lot of summer baseball with. He runs a local tournament around here, so I do a lot with him. But they're really good about getting you the games and keeping you busy. And as long as we use Event Link here in Indiana, and as long as you get on there, put your blocks in, they'll send texts out, emails out, hey, I need somebody tonight if you're available, and if you can jump on and help, you jump on and help.
Awesome. Yeah, I've like I said, I've only had to deal with. Well, I said 2, but there's a third because I'm not doing youth football anymore. But that was a whole nother assigner in that aspect. And we had multiple platforms at the time that we were doing, so that became difficult. But heck, as a parent of somebody whose kids are playing multi-sports, I have 9,000 different sports apps on my phone of what tournament is on this app and who's using Game Changer and who's using Team Sports or Team Reach, let alone then the ZebraWeb and the Arbiter and what school is paying through ZebraWeb and Arbiter. So I want to try to clear my phone of some of that stuff if I can. But yeah, it definitely can be a little bit challenging at times. And I know John was mentioning it. For us, football-wise, our varsity schedule comes out way in advance. Typically, our JV schedule and our freshman schedule is almost like a week-to-week basis because, well, your varsity games are pretty much going rain or shine. Unless it's a monsoon, we're not really getting much movement from a Friday game to a Saturday. It happens, but the JV games and the freshman games, there are weather contingencies now. Today, and we've been talking about it, today everything's been snowed out here in New Jersey, and my kids' school tomorrow is closed, so my son was supposed to have a basketball game tomorrow. I don't know what's going to happen with the rescheduling because they're not only rescheduling on the school's availability and the busing, but when they have referees available to work those games and different things like that. So it definitely can be challenging for the assigners. So I know the assigners don't like the weather if possible. They try to keep everything as copacetic as possible if they can, but can't control Mother Nature. So do you guys find that at times to be difficult when something gets rained out or moved?
You just
Yeah,
roll with it. Do what you need to do.
Yep,
It's part of the business. Right?
correct.
It's what we do. That's right. It's part of our business, and sometimes it's shitty. It's inconvenient, or you jump through hoops to make plans and to make sure you got to be where you got to be, and then at the end of the day, you did it all for nothing. Yeah, that happens a lot.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. And I mean, John, I don't know if you've had this recently, but we've kind of gotten away from it. We used to be assigned a freshman game Friday after school and then a varsity game Friday night at two different locations. And then all of a sudden a bus is a half an hour late and the game's not starting until 4:30. And then you got a 40-minute drive to get to your varsity assignment. I flat out told the coaches, I'm like, guys, listen, you're a freshman game. I got to get to a varsity game. That takes precedence. You're going to get a little bit of a quicker clock tonight, unfortunately, because we're going to give you guys the best game, but it's just going to be quicker and stuff like. Listen, life happens to everybody and everything, so got to make the best that we can at times. Well, gents, we're coming up to that hour mark, so I don't want to keep you guys much longer than this. So the last question that I have is just any words of advice, any tips that you guys can leave people, plant a seed or different things like that. Just kind of go around my screen. Les, I'll start with you. What's just a word of advice that you can give to, I know we talked about let's get involved in multi-sports, but just what kind of tips do you have? Anything?
I would just say ask questions and learn. As you get involved, talk to the coaches, talk to the other officials, and just learn. Dig in, understand the rules for everything you're doing, and just ask the questions.
John, how about you?
Everything.
Okay, so I would say this. Me personally, I have to. I love officiating, and I think if you're not passionate about the sport that you're doing and you can't get into it, it's probably not going to work out. And my word of advice to anybody is being a multi-sport official is great. I love it. I would do it every day if I could, but don't spread yourself thin. I've taken volleyball games in emergencies to go do, and then gone do a varsity football game. Going sport to sport the same day has not worked out well for me. Where I had to stop doing that, even though I was trying to help out, or I had to cut my schedule down. And I realized that it was affecting me negatively when I would get somewhere else, and I can't have that. So that's my word of advice. Don't spread yourself thin trying to be the hero.
All right, and Chuck, last but not least.
Yep, agree with everything Les and John said. Just along with that is be the best you can be. Go into every game trying to improve on something, whether you go in ahead of time picking something that's going to be, or just kind of, in general, just be better. Your partners that you work with, ask them after the game. Say, hey, anything I need to work on, or do you see anything I need to do better? And just constantly improve and constantly get better.
Awesome. All right, guys. Well, once again, I do appreciate you all taking the time out of your schedules, shoveling whatever it may be today to jump on today. Guys, I wish you guys all the best. If there's anything that I can do to help you out in the future, please feel free to reach out to me. I'm always available for you, and I'm on my phone and emails a lot. So just reach out if there's anything I can do. But good luck in your upcoming games this week, and I hope the best for everybody. So thank you guys once again. Have a good one.
Yep. Thanks for having me.
Take care. Have a great day.